Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main screen of the exploration ship U.S. Discovery. 3 months into their deep space mission, his crew had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. The coffee was getting stale, and everyone was getting bored. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," said Lisa Park from her navigation station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. "Define strange," Jake said, turning his chair toward her. "Multiple contacts, sir. Big ones. Really big ones. They just appeared out of nowhere, about 2 million kilometers off our starboard bow." Tony Rodriguez looked up from his communications console. "I'm getting some kind of transmission, Captain. It's on all frequencies at once." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of stars, they now saw what looked like the inside of a crystal palace. Everything sparkled and glowed with soft blue light. Strange music played in the background, all harps and wind chimes. A tall figure stepped into view. The alien had translucent skin that seemed to glow from within. It had 4 arms, each one moving in slow, graceful gestures. Its head was elongated, with large eyes that seemed to look right through the screen. It wore flowing robes that changed color as it moved. "Greetings, primitive beings of the third planet," the alien said in a voice that echoed like it was coming from inside a cathedral. "I am Commander Vexi of the mighty Zephyrian Dominion. Your pathetic existence has come to our attention." Pete Williams, who was checking engine readings at a side console, looked up with a confused expression. "Did he just call us primitive and pathetic in the same sentence?" "Shush," Jake whispered, trying to maintain some dignity. He stood up and straightened. His uniform says Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Discovery. "We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations." Commander Vexi raised all 4 arms dramatically. The camera somehow zoomed in on his face, which now filled the entire screen. "There can be no friendship between the mighty Zephyrian Dominion and lesser beings. You will surrender immediately to our infinite wisdom and cosmic authority." Amy Chen, the chief engineer, was drinking coffee when the alien said this. She nearly choked, trying not to laugh. "Infinite wisdom?" she whispered to Tony. "Who talks like that? Your feeble minds cannot comprehend the vast power we wield." Vexi continued, his voice getting louder and more dramatic. "We possess weapons of ultimate destruction that can tear apart the very fabric of space itself. Our fleets are so numerous they blot out entire stars. Our technology is so advanced that we can reshape reality with a single thought." Pete Williams snorted. He tried to cover it with a cough, but it came out as more of a giggle. Jake shot him a warning look, but he was starting to feel the same way. The alien sounded exactly like the bad guys in those old space movies his grandfather used to watch. All that was missing was the evil laugh. "Behold the might of the Zephyrian Warfleet," Vexi announced. The screen switched to an outside view, and Jake had to admit it was impressive. Dozens of massive ships hung in space around the Discovery. They were beautiful in a strange way, all curves and crystal surfaces that caught and reflected light. Each ship was at least 10 times the size of the Discovery. But then Amy Chen started giggling. "Look at those ships," she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "They're covered in Christmas lights." Jake looked closer. She was right. The alien ships were decorated with thousands of tiny lights that blinked in complex patterns. Looked more like a floating light show than a war fleet. Furthermore, Vexi continued, apparently not hearing their whispers, "Our bioscanners have already analyzed your primitive vessel. We see that you carry only basic weapons that could not harm even the smallest of our mighty craft. Your shields are laughably weak. Your engines are so slow that our children's toy ships could outrun you." "Did he just say their kids have toy spaceships faster than our ship?" Lisa asked. "I think he did," Jake replied, trying hard to keep a straight face. Tony Rodriguez was reading something on his screen. "Captain, I'm analyzing their transmission. The signal is really weird. It's like they're broadcasting from inside some kind of theater." "Your doom is sealed," Vexi announced, spreading all 4 arms wide. "But the glorious Zephyrian Dominion is merciful. We shall allow you to witness the magnificence of our empire before you are absorbed into our cosmic greatness. Prepare to be boarded by our elite warriors, who strike fear into the hearts of 1,000 conquered worlds. That did it. Pete Williams burst out laughing. Elite warriors? Is he serious right now? The laughter was catching. Lisa started chuckling. Amy Chen was trying so hard not to laugh that tears were running down her face. Even Tony was grinning as he monitored the alien transmission. Jake tried to maintain command authority, but his crew was falling apart. People, please, this is first contact with an alien species. Show some respect. But Captain Amy gasped between giggles. Listen to him. He sounds like he's reading from a bad script. Who says they're going to absorb us into their cosmic greatness? What does that even mean? On screen, Commander Vexi had stopped talking and was staring at them with what might have been confusion. Why do you make those strange noises? Are you in pain? Is this some primitive defense mechanism? We're laughing, Jake explained, still trying to be diplomatic, even though his own shoulders were starting to shake. It's a sign of amusement. Amusement? Vexi tilted his head to one side. You find the might of the Zephyrian Dominion amusing? Well, Jake said carefully, it's just that you sound exactly like the villains in our entertainment shows. You know, the ones that always say they're going to conquer the universe, but never actually do it. There was a long pause. Commander Vexi seemed to be talking to someone off-screen, though the humans couldn't hear what was being said. Finally, he turned back to face them. This requires further study. You will remain in this location while we analyze this strange response to our overwhelming power. Do not attempt to flee, for there is no escape from the cosmic justice of the Zephyrian Dominion. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Discovery in silence except for the quiet chuckling of the crew. Jake sat back down in his captain's chair and rubbed his forehead. Well, that was interesting. 2 hours after the first contact, a massive transport ship approached the Discovery. Jake Morrison watched through the main screen as the alien vessel got closer. It looked like someone had decided to build a spaceship out of mirrors and colored glass. Captain, Tony Rodriguez called from his station. They're requesting permission to dock. They want to bring you and one other crew member aboard their flagship for what they call preliminary subjugation processing. Preliminary subjugation processing? Jake repeated slowly. They really do talk like bad movie villains, don't they? I'll go with you, Captain, said Helen Foster, the ship's diplomatic officer. She had been called to the bridge when the aliens first appeared. It's what I'm trained for. Jake nodded. Tony, tell them we accept their invitation. Try to sound official. 30 minutes later, Jake and Helen found themselves in what the aliens called a transport pod. It was the most ridiculous vehicle Jake had ever seen. The seats were made of what looked like golden velvet. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, swaying gently as the pod moved through space. Soft music played in the background, the kind you might hear in an expensive restaurant. This is either the fanciest prison transport in the galaxy, or these aliens have some very strange ideas about intimidation, Helen whispered. The pod docked with the alien flagship, and the doors opened with a sound like a choir of angels. Zephyrian guards stood waiting for them. They wore elaborate uniforms covered in shiny badges and ribbons. Their helmets had tall feathers sticking out of the top. Welcome, primitive beings, to the Eternal Majesty, flagship of the glorious Zephyrian fleet. One of the guards announced in the same dramatic voice they had heard from Commander Vexi. You will now witness the awesome power of Emperor Zixathon. Before your inevitable absorption into our cosmic empire. Jake and Helen exchanged glances. Helen bit her lip to keep from smiling. The guards led them through corridors that looked like the inside of a jewelry store. Everything was gold or crystal, or both. Paintings covered the walls, showing Zephyrians in heroic poses, usually standing on top of defeated enemies, while dramatic lighting shone down on them. Is it just me? Helen whispered. Or does this place look like it was designed by someone who had never seen anything but opera sets? They passed what looked like weapons stations, but Jake noticed that the controls were covered in gems and fancy decorations. One console had a large red button labeled Ultimate Destruction Beam In. Flowing script. Another had a dial that went from mild intimidation to cosmic terror. Those can't be real weapon controls, Helen murmured. Look at that one. Jake pointed to a station where Zephyrian was operating what appeared to be some kind of targeting system by waving. His arms in the air like he was conducting an orchestra. The corridor opened into a vast throne room. Ceiling was so high they could barely see it. Columns of pure crystal supported the roof, and light bounced between them in complex patterns. At the far end of the room sat a throne that looked like it was made from a single enormous diamond. Emperor Zixathon was even more dramatic than Commander Vexi. He wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, constantly shifting between different colors. His crown had 17 points, each one topped with a different colored gem. In his hand he held a staff that was shooting tiny sparkles into the air. "Behold, pitiful creatures from the third rock," the Emperor announced, his voice echoing through the huge room. "You stand before Zixathon, the magnificent, conqueror of worlds, bringer of cosmic justice, master of the infinite void, and keeper of the sacred sparkles." Helen made a small choking sound. Jake realized she was trying very hard not to laugh at Keeper of the Sacred Sparkles. "Your species shall be catalogued and processed," the Emperor continued, raising his sparkly staff high above his head. "Will be assigned planets suitable for your primitive development, under the wise guidance of the Zephyrian Dominion. Your children will learn our ways. Your culture will be absorbed into our magnificent cosmic tapestry." Excuse me, Your Magnificence," Jake said, trying to sound respectful, "but we're curious about your technology. It's a very impressive staff you have there." Emperor Zixathon beamed with pride. "This is the staff of ultimate authority. It channels the very power of the cosmos itself." He waved it dramatically, and more sparkles shot out. "With this device, I can reshape matter, bend space, and command the forces of nature themselves." Helen could not hold back anymore. She started giggling. "What is the meaning of this strange behavior?" the Emperor demanded. "I'm sorry, Helen," gasped, "but your ultimate cosmic weapon is a sparkler. The kind children play with at celebrations." Jake looked closer at the staff. Helen was right. It was basically a fancy version of the fireworks kids waved around at summer festivals back on Earth. "These are not mere sparkles," the Emperor insisted, waving the staff again. "These are concentrated particles of pure cosmic energy. They're really pretty," Jake said diplomatically, "but they don't actually seem to do anything except make light and sparkle." Emperor Zixathon looked confused. He examined his staff as if seeing it for the first time. But they have always been sufficient to demonstrate our power. No species has ever questioned the might of the sacred sparkles." Commander Vexi appeared beside the throne, looking worried. "Your Magnificence, there may be a problem with these humans. They do not respond to our standard intimidation protocols." "What do you mean?" the Emperor asked. "They keep making those noise sounds when we demonstrate our power. They ask questions about our technology instead of cowering in fear." Jek was beginning to understand what was happening. "Can I ask you something, Emperor Zixathon? How many worlds have you actually conquered with force?" "Conquered with force?" The Emperor looked puzzled. "Why would we need force? Our magnificent presence and awesome technology are sufficient to convince any reasonable species to join our glorious empire. So you've never actually had to fight anyone." "Fight? You mean like violence? How primitive." "The Zephyrian way is to demonstrate our superiority through magnificent displays of power. No civilized species would dare oppose us once they witness our cosmic might." Helen was now openly laughing.
Galactic.
"You've been bluffing this whole time, haven't you? All of this dramatic presentation, the fancy ships, the sparkly weapons, it's all just for show." Emperor Zixathon drew himself up to his full height. "This is not a show. This is the natural order of the cosmos. We are clearly superior beings, and other species naturally recognize this fact. But what if they don't?" Jake asked. Emperor stared at him blankly. "What do you mean, what if they don't?" "Of course they do. Everyone does. You will too, once you understand the full magnificence of our empire." Jake and Helen looked at each other. They were beginning to realize they had stumbled into something much stranger than they had first thought. After the meeting with Emperor Zixathon, Jake and Helen were given quarters on the alien flagship. Their room looked like it belonged in a fancy hotel. It was beds that seemed to be made of clouds and walls that showed moving pictures of peaceful alien landscapes. "We need to learn more about these people," Jake told Helen as they settled in. "Something doesn't add up here." Meanwhile, back on the Discovery, Dr. Rachel Stone was having the most interesting conversation of her career. The Zephyrians had allowed her to interview some of the crew members from their ships, calling it cultural assessment for proper integration procedures. The first alien she spoke with was a young Zephyrian named Clyther. He was much smaller than Commander Vexi, and he seemed nervous. "So," Rachel said, trying to sound casual, "you've conquered a lot of worlds, right?" "Oh yes," Clyther said proudly. "I have participated in 17 successful integration ceremonies." Integration ceremonies? Where we arrive at a new world, demonstrate our cosmic superiority, and the local species agrees to join our glorious empire. Rachel leaned forward. "What exactly happens during these ceremonies?" Clyther looked confused by the question. "We play the music, show our magnificent ships, and Emperor Zixathon gives his speech about cosmic authority. Then the local leaders usually ask what they need to do to avoid destruction. And what do you tell them? That they must send representatives to our annual appreciation festivals, contribute some of their local art to our cultural collection, and occasionally participate in ceremonial displays of submission. Nothing too difficult." Rachel blinked. "That's it? You don't take over their governments or steal their resources? Why would we do that? We have everything we need." "The appreciation festivals are quite enjoyable, and we have collected some wonderful art pieces over the years." On another part of the ship, Danny Lee was exploring the areas where the Zephyrians had told him not to go. Security chief figured it was his job to understand what kind of threat they were really dealing with. What he found was even more ridiculous than he had expected. The ship's weapons systems were located behind a door marked Chamber of Ultimate Destruction. Inside, Danny found what looked like the backstage area of a theater. There were racks of costumes, boxes of colored lights, and several machines that seemed designed to make fog and play dramatic music. The quantum destabilizer that the Zephyrians had mentioned turned out to be a large mirror ball that projected colorful patterns on the walls. The molecular phase cannon was actually a device that shot streams of harmless but very pretty colored lights. "This is unbelievable," Danny muttered to himself, as he examined what the label claimed was a planet cracker. It appeared to be a mining laser with about 1,000 extra lights and decorations attached to it. It probably could crack a planet, but it would take several thousand years to do it. Back in their quarters, Jake and Helen were visited by a Zephyrian who introduced himself as Cultural Integration Specialist, Mixron, who was carrying what looked like a clipboard made of crystal. "I am here to begin your species assessment," Mixron announced. "We must determine the proper role for humans within our cosmic empire." "What kinds of roles are available?" Helen asked. Mixron consulted his crystal clipboard.
Oh.
"Well, there are many options. The Krillians from Sector 7 are our primary music composers. The Vorthan people excel at decorative arts. The Zelthans have a talent for dramatic poetry." "What about military roles?" Jake asked. "Soldiers, guards, that sort of thing." Mixron looked puzzled. "Military? I am not familiar with this concept. Fighting, defense, protecting the Empire from enemies?" "Enemies?" Mixron tilted his head. "What are enemies?" Jake and Helen stared at him. "People who want to hurt you or take your stuff," Helen explained. "But why would anyone want to do that? If they needed something, they could simply ask. And why would they want to hurt us? We are quite pleasant once you get to know us." Jake was beginning to understand. "Mixron, has your empire ever been in a war?" "War? Is that another human concept I should record? Fighting between different groups? Battles? Violence?" Mixron looked horrified. "That sounds terrible. Why would anyone do such things when they could simply have a nice conversation instead?" While this conversation was happening, Lisa Park had made an amazing discovery back on the Discovery. Tony had accidentally left the communication system open. It was picking up broadcasts from throughout the Zephyrian fleet. What she heard was not what she expected. "Attention crew of the Magnificent Destiny," came a voice over the alien communication system. "Tonight's rehearsal for the Intimidation Sequence 7 will begin in 1 hour. Please remember to practice your dramatic gestures. Last week's performance was somewhat lacking in cosmic authority. Another voice came through. This is the eternal glory calling all ships. Has anyone seen the spare crown for Emperor Zixathan? Ashi. He's supposed to wear the 17-pointed one for tomorrow's ceremony? Ashiko. But we can only find the 15-pointed backup crown. Lisa listened for over an hour, and slowly a picture began to form. The Zephyrians were not just dramatic in their dealings with other species, they were dramatic about everything. They had rehearsals for their intimidation speeches. They practiced their threatening gestures. They had costume departments and lighting technicians. But the most interesting thing she heard was a conversation between two, the Zephyrian ship captains. I still don't understand these humans, one was saying. When we showed them our cosmic terror display, they made those strange laughing sounds. Perhaps their species responds differently to magnificence, the other replied. Maybe we need to increase the sparkle intensity. I tried that. I used the maximum sparkle setting on my staff. They laughed even more. How puzzling, you think? They might be immune to our cosmic authority? It's impossible. No species is immune to proper dramatic presentation. We must be doing something wrong. Lisa quickly called Dr. Stone to her station. Rachel, you need to hear this. As Rachel listened to the alien communications, her eyes grew wide. They're not conquerors, she whispered. They're performers. This whole empire is just one big traveling show. But the other species they've conquered, Lisa said, they must know this, right? Rachel thought about her conversation with Clyther. I'm not sure they do. I think everyone has been so impressed by the show that nobody ever looked behind the curtain. At that moment, Amy Chen's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain Morrison, you need to get back here right now. I just accidentally fixed one of their doomsday machines. And now they want to promote me to Supreme Technician of Magnificent Destruction. Jake's voice crackled back through the communicator. You fixed what now? It was just a broken light switch, Captain. They're acting like I performed some kind of miracle. Emperor Zixathan decided to show Jake and Helen the true power of the Zephyrian Empire by taking them on a tour of conquered worlds. They traveled in his personal ship, which he called the Golden Magnificence. It was even more decorated than the flagship, with mirrors on every surface and crystal flowers that played tiny songs when touched. You will witness the devotion of our subjects, the Emperor announced as they approached their first stop. The people of Korath Prime have served our empire faithfully for over 50 standard years. The planet looked normal from space, green and blue with white clouds swirling around it. Nothing seemed unusual until they landed at what the Emperor called the primary submission complex. Jake and Helen expected to see some kind of military base or government building. Instead, they found what looked like a carnival. Colorful tents were set up in a large field. Alien families were walking around eating strange foods and playing games. Children were running around with balloons. This is your submission complex, Helen asked. Indeed, Emperor Zixathan said proudly. Every month, the Korathians gather here to demonstrate their loyalty to our cosmic authority. A group of local aliens approached them. They looked like large furry cats that walked on two legs. One of them, wearing what appeared to be a party hat, stepped forward. Welcome, Great Emperor, the Catolian said in a voice that sounded like he was trying not to laugh. We are ready for this month's submission ceremony. Excellent, Chief Administrator Fluffy, the Emperor replied. You may begin. Jake blinked. Did he just call him Chief Administrator Fluffy? That is my official title in the Imperial records, Fluffy explained with what Jake was pretty sure was a wink. Now, everyone, assume the position of cosmic fear. All. The Catalians immediately fell to the ground and started shaking dramatically. But Jake could see that most of them were struggling not to smile. Oh no, one of them called out in a voice that was clearly fake scared. We are so terrified of the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Please do not destroy us with your awesome power. We tremble before your cosmic authority, another added. While obviously trying not to giggle, Emperor Zixathan nodded approvingly. You see? Perfect submission. They understand the natural order of the universe. After the ceremony, Chief Administrator Fluffy quietly approached Jake and Helen, while the Emperor was distracted by some decorative lights. You are the humans we have heard about, Fluffy whispered. The ones who laugh at the dramatic speeches? Word travels fast, Jake said. Oh yes. News of species that do not fall for the sparkly staff routine spreads quickly among the Empire's subjects. We have been waiting years for someone to point out how ridiculous this all is. I mean, they're just pretending to. Be powerful? Helen asked. Fluffy made a sound that might have been a purr of amusement. Of course we know. We have known since the second week. No, but they are so pleased with themselves, and the submission ceremonies are actually quite fun. Our children love the monthly costume parties. Costume parties. Well, what do you think the submission ceremonies really are? We get together, put on a show for the Zephyrians, then have a big festival. They provide entertainment, we provide an audience. It works out well for everyone. Jake shook his head in amazement. Do all the conquered worlds know the truth? Most of them figured it out eventually. The Vorthons realized it when they noticed the Zephyrians' planet-cracking weapon was actually just a mining laser with extra lights. The Zelthans caught on when they were asked to write dramatic poetry about their own defeat. Hard to take seriously when you are writing your own conquest story. Their next stop was a world called Velcorn 7. The local aliens looked like giant mushrooms with eyes. Their leader, who called himself Grand Servant Sporington, greeted Emperor Zixathon with elaborate bowing. Great Emperor, we have prepared a special display of our continued submission, Sporington announced. What followed was the most obvious fake battle Jake had ever seen. The mushroom aliens ran around pretending to fight invisible Zephyrian soldiers. They fell down dramatically, calling out things like, "Oh no. We are defeated by your superior tactics, and your cosmic weapons are too powerful for us." The best part was when one of them pretended to be hit by a cosmic ray beam and spent 5 minutes doing an elaborate death scene, complete with final words about the glory of the Zephyrian Empire. Emperor Zixathon watched with obvious pride. Magnificent. They truly understand the hopelessness of resisting our might. After the performance, Sporington approached the humans. "We heard you might be the ones to finally end this charade," he whispered. "You want it to end?" Helen asked.
Ow!
It was fun for the first few years, but we are running out of new ways to pretend to be conquered. Last month we had to do an interpretive dance about our submission to imperial authority. Do you know how hard it is to make interpretive dance look like military defeat? The third world they visited was called New Harmony. The local aliens looked like walking plants with flower heads. Their leader, Beautiful Bloom, had prepared what she called a demonstration of terror and submission.
Ow.
This turned out to be a musical performance. 50 Plantalians sang a song about how scary the Zephyrian Empire was and how happy they were. To be conquered, the song was actually quite catchy, though the lyrics were ridiculous. "We shake like leaves before your cosmic might," they sang in harmony. "Your sparkly weapons fill us with fright. Oh, please do not use your ultimate power. We will be good subjects every hour." Emperor Zixathon was so moved by the performance that he wiped tears from his eyes. Beautiful. Simply beautiful. This is why we bring order to the cosmos. Beautiful. Bloom approached Jake and Helen after the concert. "The Carathians sent us a message about you."
Is it true that you are immune to dramatic speeches? We just think they're funny, Jake explained. Wonderful. Perhaps you can help us with a problem.
We are composers, you see. We have been writing these submission songs for decades now. But we are running out of rhymes for cosmic authority. Do you know any good words that rhyme with authority? Helen thought for a moment. Priority? Majority? Oh, those are perfect. We can write a whole new verse about how serving the Empire is our top priority, and how the majority of the universe fears Zephyrian power. As they traveled back to the flagship, Jake and Helen sat in silence, trying to process what they had seen. "They are all in on it," Helen finally said. "Every single conquered world knows the Zephyrians are harmless, but they keep playing along." "Why?" Jake asked. "Think about it. The Zephyrians are not asking for much. A monthly party, some dramatic performances, occasional artistic contributions. In exchange, they get protection from real threats, help with trade between worlds, and a government that actually leaves them alone most of the time." Jake nodded slowly. "It is probably the most benevolent accidental empire in galactic history." "Question is," Helen said, "what do we do about it?" Back on the flagship, Jake sat down with Emperor Zixathon, in the royal dining hall. The room was decorated with floating candles and tables made of what looked like solid gold. The emperor was eating something that sparkled and changed colors as he chewed it. "Your Magnificence," Jake began carefully, "I have a proposal for you." Emperor Zixathan looked up from his sparkling food. "A proposal? How interesting. Proceed, primitive human." "What if, instead of conquering my people, you taught us about your culture, and maybe we could teach you about ours?" The emperor paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. "Teach? But you are supposed to submit to our cosmic authority." "Well, yes, but think about it. Wouldn't it be more impressive if humans chose to join your empire because they were amazed by your culture, rather than because they were forced to?" Emperor Zixathan set down his fork and leaned forward. "Continue. On my world, we have something called comedy. It's like drama, but designed to make people laugh instead of feel scared. The laughter you heard from my crew wasn't mockery, it was appreciation for entertainment." "Entertainment?" The emperor looked confused. "But our displays are demonstrations of power. They could be both," Jake suggested. "Your people are natural performers. Have you ever considered that maybe your true talent isn't conquering worlds, but creating amazing shows?" Meanwhile, on the Discovery, Steve Nash was having the time of his life. The crew's unofficial entertainment officer had been brought over to the Zephyrian ships to participate in what they called cultural assessment procedures. What this actually meant was that Steve was teaching a dozen Zephyrians how to tell jokes. "Okay, try this one," Steve said to a young Zephyrian named Zilkter. "Why did the space chicken cross the asteroid belt?" Zilkter thought for a moment. "To demonstrate its cosmic authority over lesser poultry?" No, Steve laughed. "To get to the other side?" "It's funny, because it's unexpected. You think there's going to be a complicated answer. But it's really simple." "I do not understand," Zilkter said sadly. "How is simplicity amusing?" "Let me try a different approach," Steve said. "What do you call a Zephyrian who forgot his sparkly staff? A Zephyrian who has failed in his cosmic duties and brought shame upon the Empire? No, you call him not very bright." Steve grinned. "Get it? Because the staff makes light?" Zilkter stared at him for a long moment. Then, suddenly, he made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Steve realized the alien was laughing. Oh, I understand now," Zilkter exclaimed. "The humor comes from the unexpected connection between concepts. This is fascinating. Can you teach me more?" Back in the throne room, Emperor Zixathan was listening to Jake's proposal with growing interest. Helen had joined them, along with Dr. Darrett. Rachel Stone, who had been brought over to discuss human culture. "So you are suggesting," the Emperor said slowly, "that instead of absorbing your species into our empire through cosmic authority, we should perform for them?" "Exactly," Rachel said. "Your people have amazing talents. The costumes, the music, the dramatic presentations. On Earth, people would pay good money to see shows like that." "Pay money?" The Emperor looked puzzled. "Why would they give us money?" "Because you would be entertaining them," Helen explained. "Making them happy. That's valuable." Emperor Zixathan stood up and began pacing around his crystal throne. "This is a very strange concept. You're saying that beings would voluntarily give us resources in exchange for performances." "It happens all the time on our world," Jake said. "Artists, musicians, actors, they all make livings by entertaining people. And these entertainers are respected in your society. The good ones are very respected. Some of them are more famous than our political leaders." The Emperor stopped pacing. "More famous than leaders? Truly? Absolutely. A really talented performer can become known across an entire planet, even across multiple worlds." For the first time since they had met him, Emperor Zixathan looked genuinely excited. "This concept intrigues me greatly. Tell me more about these entertainers." Dr. Stone pulled out a tablet and showed the Emperor some videos from Earth she had selected carefully. Choosing performances that were dramatic and impressive, but not violent or scary, the Emperor watched, in fascination as human performers sang, danced, and acted out stories. "Remarkable," he whispered. "They create emotion through performance, just as we do. But their purpose is to bring joy rather than to demonstrate authority." That's right, Rachel said. And the audience participates by clapping, cheering, and showing appreciation. Like the strange, laughing sounds your crew made, the Emperor realized. You were not mocking us. You were enjoying the performance. Exactly, Jake said. Your dramatic presentations are actually quite impressive. It's just that two humans. They seem designed for entertainment rather than intimidation. Emperor Zixathon was quiet for a long time, staring at the tablet screen. Finally, he looked up at the humans. I wish to learn more about this entertainment concept. But what about our empire? What about our cosmic authority? Well, Helen said carefully, what if your empire became something different? Instead of conquering worlds through fear, what if you brought them joy through performance? It could still be an empire, just a different kind of empire. An empire of entertainment, the Emperor mused. Instead of subjects, we would have audiences. And instead of tribute, you would receive applause, Rachel added. The Emperor's eyes began to glow brighter. This idea has merit. But would the other worlds accept such a change? They are accustomed to our traditional methods. Jake smiled. Your Magnificence. I think you might be surprised by how enthusiastically they would accept it. In fact, I suspect many of them have been hoping for something exactly like this for a very long time. At that moment, Commander Vexi burst into the throne room. Your Magnificence, we have a situation. The humans on their ship have been broadcasting something called comedy shows to our fleet. Half our crew is making strange laughing sounds, and they keep asking for more. Emperor Zixathon looked at the humans. Show me these comedy shows. An hour later, the Emperor was making the same strange laughing sounds as his crew. This is remarkable, he gasped between chuckles. The humans create joy deliberately. Their audiences participate willingly. So, Jake said, what do you think? You interested in learning a new way to build an empire? Emperor Zixathon stood up and raised his sparkly staff high above his head. But instead of making a dramatic proclamation about cosmic authority, he smiled. I, Zixathon, the Magnificent, hereby declare the beginning of a new age. The Zephyrian Dominion shall become the Zephyrian Entertainment Collective. We shall bring joy to the cosmos instead of fear. He paused and looked at the humans. But we will need teachers. Will you help us learn the ways of entertainment? Jake grinned. Your Magnificence, it would be our pleasure. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Discovery, watching the most spectacular show he had ever seen. The former Zephyrian war fleet had been transformed into a traveling entertainment armada, and tonight they were performing for the people of Tau Ceti 5. The ships themselves had become part of the performance. Instead of trying to look intimidating, they now danced through space in complex patterns, their lights creating beautiful designs against the stars. Each ship played different music, but somehow it all worked together like a cosmic orchestra. Captain, you need to see this, Lisa Park called from her station. She was reading messages from across the galaxy. We're getting reports from everywhere. The Entertainment Collective has performed on over 200 worlds in the past month. Alone, Jake smiled as he read the reports. The Zephyrians had taken to their new role with the same dramatic enthusiasm they had once used for conquest. The difference was that now their audiences were genuinely appreciating the show instead of just pretending to be scared. Emperor Zixathon, Kata Zixathon, had become the most popular entertainment figure in the galaxy. His cosmic comedy hour was broadcast to millions of worlds every week. The former emperor had discovered he had a real talent for making people laugh, especially when he told stories about the old days of trying to be intimidating. My favorite routine is still the one where he talks about the time he tried to conquer a world by threatening them with his sparkly staff, Helen Foster said, joining Jake at the observation window. And then he demonstrates how the staff works by shooting sparkles everywhere while trying to look menacing. The communication system crackled to life with a familiar voice. Attention, U.S. Discovery. This is Director Zixathon, requesting permission to come aboard for our weekly planning session. Permission granted, Director Jake replied. We'll meet you in the main conference room. The weekly planning sessions had become a tradition. The humans helped the Zephyrians develop new entertainment ideas, while the Zephyrians taught the humans about performance and presentation. It was the strangest cultural exchange program in galactic history, but it was working better than anyone had expected. 20 minutes later, Director Zixathon entered the conference room wearing his new costume. Instead of flowing robes and a 17-pointed crown, he now wore a sparkling jacket and a hat with just 3 feathers. He still carried a staff, but this one shot confetti instead of sparkles. "My friends," he announced with his usual dramatic flair, "I bring wonderful news. The Grand Council of Entertainment has officially invited us to perform at the Galactic Arts Festival next month." Dr. Rachel Stone looked up from her notes. "That's amazing. The Arts Festival only happens once every 10 years. Being invited is a huge honor." "Indeed," the director beamed. "And we owe it all to our human teachers. Steve Nash's comedy lessons have revolutionized our performance style. Amy Chen's technical improvements have made our light shows even more spectacular. And Captain Morrison's advice about audience participation has transformed our entire approach." Felt a warm sense of satisfaction. Past 6 months had been the most rewarding of his career. Instead of just exploring empty space, his crew had helped create something genuinely good in the galaxy. "How are the former subject worlds adapting to the change?" Helen asked. "Magnificently," Director Zixathon replied. "The Carathians have started their own comedy troupe. The mushroom people of Velcorn 7 have become famous for their interpretive dance performances. And the plant people of New Harmony have formed the most popular musical group in 3 sectors." "What about Chief?" Administrator Fluffy, Jake asked. "Last I heard, he was writing a book about the old submission ceremonies." "Oh yes, 50 Years of Fake Fear is going to be published next month. The publisher expects it to be a galactic bestseller." Fluffy has a wonderful sense of humor about the whole situation. Tony Rodriguez joined the conversation from his station. "Director, I'm getting a priority message from Admiral Patricia Cole at Earth Command. She wants to speak with Captain Morrison immediately." Jake felt a moment of worry. He had been sending regular reports back to Earth, but he knew his mission had gone in a completely unexpected direction. "Put her through, Tony." Admiral Cole's face appeared on the main screen. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. "Captain Morrison, I've been reading your reports with great interest. Am I to understand that you've single-handedly ended a galactic empire through the power of laughter?" "Well, Admiral, it's a bit more complicated than that," Jake began. "Should hope so. You have any idea how this looks in the official records? Mission to explore deep space results in conversion of alien. Empire into entertainment collective. My superiors are having trouble believing it." Director Zixathon stepped into view of the camera. "Greetings, Admiral Cole. I am Director Zixathon of the Zephyrian Entertainment Collective. I wish to express our gratitude to your excellent crew. They have helped us discover our true calling." Admiral Cole stared at the dramatically dressed alien for a moment. Then, to Jake's surprise, she started to smile. "Director Zixathon, I've been watching recordings of your performances. Our granddaughter is a huge fan of your Cosmic Comedy Hour. Truly, how wonderful. Please give her my regards." "I will." "Now, Captain Morrison, I have new orders for you. Starfleet Command has decided that your mission is too valuable to end. You're to continue working with the Entertainment Collective as Earth's official cultural liaison." Lee Sent felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Admiral. You'd be honored to." "Continue the mission. There's more," Admiral Cole continued. "We've received reports of another so-called galactic empire making threats in the Andromeda sector. They call themselves the Crimson Devastators, and they claim to have weapons that can destroy entire star systems." Director Zixathon made an excited sound. "Oh, they sound wonderfully dramatic. I would very much like to meet them." "That's the idea," Admiral Cole said. Your new mission is to investigate these Crimson Devastators. Based on your recent experience, Starfleet believes they might be another case of impressive presentation covering up harmless reality." Jake grinned. "Understood, Admiral. When do we leave?" "As soon as you're ready. And Captain, take plenty of popcorn. Something tells me you're going to need it." 2 days later, the Discovery and a small Zephyrian entertainment ship were heading toward the Andromeda sector. Jake sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars stream past on the main screen. "Captain Lisa Park called from navigation. I'm detecting multiple ships ahead. Large ones. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Let's hear it, Jake said. A deep, menacing voice filled the bridge. Attention, pathetic life forms. You have entered the domain of the Crimson Devastators. Prepare to witness weapons of unimaginable destruction. Tremble before our cosmic might. Jake looked around at his crew. Amy Chen was already starting to giggle. Tony Rodriguez was shaking his head with amusement. Dr. Stone was taking notes with a big smile on her face. Well, team, Jake said, leaning back in his chair. Here we go again.